Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Huglets. And thank you so much for tuning in today to our little lecture on Steiff's Tail Moves Head Items. My name is Rebecca Kaufman, and I'm coming to you almost live from Cambridge, Massachusetts, in the United States, which is just outside of Boston. Our town is best known for the home of Harvard University, which you probably have heard of. Anyway, I am a longtime Steiff lover and collector, and also very involved in the doll and toy world here in America. I'm a proud member of United Federation of Doll Clubs. My doll club is Doll Study Club of Boston, and I'm also a proud member of Doll Collectors of America. And all of these groups are also very interested in these beautiful antique tail moves head items. So I'm excited to share with you the story behind them, as well as show you a few highlights from my personal collection. So let's get started. The name of our talk is called Twist and Shout, Steiff's Tail Moves Head Novelties. So what do you need to know about these wonderful items? And you can see a fine selection of them here on the left. Well, these sweet treats were patented in the early 1930s and have internal metal mechanism in their bodies which allow their heads to turn in a full circle when their tails are twisted. These were produced in the early 1930s through the early 1940s, and about 25 different versions were made over that time frame. And for the most part, the designs were based on the most beloved Steiff patterns of the era, but in a case or two, a brand new pattern was introduced, and I'll talk to you about those later on in the presentation. These generally have a very distinctive neck structure. They are based, as I had mentioned, on standard Steiff items that are very popular, but you will tend to see that the neck area is a little bit elongated or a little bit more floppy than in the standard line model, and that is to accommodate the movement. And I'll give you some examples of that in our live presentation. The line included cats and dogs, rabbits, penguins, even a goat, some lambs, and even an elephant and other items. They are just phenomenal and so beautiful and so interesting. And finding one is always such a treat. And at the time that they were produced, they were considered luxury toys because they had movement to them. And so they were a part of Steiff's higher end production at the time. So of course we need to start at the back end or the tail end, and let's take a look at what makes these so distinctive and so interesting. So here on the left, you can see what I like to call the tush tag, or whatever the little label was attached to the rear end of the tail moves head items. And here you can see a close-up of this tag. This image, of course, is from Teddy Dorado, and I'd like to thank them for the use of those images. And any images that you see in this program were either from my own personal collection or are noted in the captions. But the tush tag has the instructions for moving the tail in 3 different languages. And here you can see in the middle an example of the tail end. You often see in these items, the mohair has fallen off or worn off because it's gotten a lot of attention and such. Now let's take a deep dive into one of the most popular and prolific tail moves head items. And this guy is called Rattler the Rat Terrier. The middle picture here is from Christie's. The other are from my personal collection. So this guy was made in 8 sizes, ranging from a teeny tiny 8 centimeter to 35 centimeter, from about 1930 through 1943. He's sitting, he's head jointed and stuffed with Excelsior. And the Excelsior, of course, was the typical stuffing of the era, but its heft and consistency allowed the structure to stay in place and not migrate in the body. He's made from mohair with highlights, with longer mohair accents around his face. And he has these delightful tri-colored glass eyes that are almond shapes. You often see these on the company's Scotties as well. And he has a black nose and mouth. He's just a beautiful little specimen. So I wanted to share with you my little Rattler so you could see him firsthand. He's a little guy, fits right in my hand. He's just beautiful. And most interestingly, he retains all of his IDs. He's got his little button, traces of his red ear tag, and his chest tag. And what I find so interesting about this is that clearly this little guy has gotten a lot of love, and that's the way it should be because he's so beautiful and such a nice little guy. But for some reason, the mohair's worn off and he's lost his little mohair tail, but he still has his chest tag. I would think that would be the first thing to go, but who knows? Anyway, you can see his beautiful eyes and his little boop, and I will demonstrate him for you. He still moves after all these years. Look at that. He's saying, hello, greetings. Oops, I'm a little stuck there, but I can go this way. Lovely little rattler. And so probably one of the most common or typical tail moves head items, but darling, posed with other Steiff animals or even dolls. Here are some other tail turns head dogs, and they're all quite lovely and come in a full range of sizes. Starting on the top left, you can see this wonderful Dachshund, who's made out of black and sort of an orange tipped mohair. He's fully jointed and completely adorable. On the lower left, you see a Treff, the bloodhound, in a lovely kind of brownish cinnamon color. In the middle, a delightful St. Bernard dog with his wonderful patched mohair coloring and charming expression. In the upper right, there's a little Molly. You can see also produced in a tail turns head model. And on the bottom right, a Scotty in his tail turns head design. All simply beautiful and all having this wonderful tail moves head mechanism. So let me show you a few tail moves head dogs from my personal collection. I'm going to start with something that probably caught your eye, which is the Dachshund. Isn't he just adorable? As I said, he's fully jointed, so he moves and grooves. He's got wonderful face and such. And let me demonstrate him for you. Hello, hello. Greetings from Cambridge to you. Just a beautiful, happy little fellow. Adorable. And I also have a few Scotties, and I have them in two sizes, so I thought I'd share both with you. Here's the baby. Let me start with the baby. He's saying hello, greetings, with his eyes like Rattler. You can see those, tri-colored glass. He has his original collar, which is made out of white, sort of blackish leather with a few Steiff buttons on it. Lovely little baby Scotty. And his mama. A little bit bigger. Also happy to move and groove with you. And they really scale in a beautiful way. So here's the happy family. All right. Now let's talk about cats. And cats are another very popular pre-war as well as post-war design for Steiff. And here are a number of precious cats designed in the tail turns head model. On the upper left, you can see the Siamese cats, which are the Siamese cats in their tail moves head design. This wonderful picture is from the collection of Karen Hoban, who many of us know and call a good friend, a wonderful collector who was kind enough to share this picture. Here on the bottom left is a Fluffy with a wonderful coloring and tail moves head feature. And here on the right are two cats that I personally handled. I think it was in 2014 or so at the James D. Julia auction of a wonderful Steiff collection. On the upper right is a delightful tabby cat with a very long tail. He's sitting and just lovely expression, and that tail moves that head. And on the bottom, a smaller tabby cat, again with the tail moves head mechanism. Simply beautiful. Now, I don't have any of these in my collection, so I can't share with you them personally, but I hope you enjoy their photographs. And these, of course, are on my bucket list and perhaps on yours as well. Also popular tail moves head items were birds. And here on the left is a little king penguin, a lovely little fellow, and we'll see him in a bit, but he has wonderful jewel-colored green and orange mohair and velvet wings and velvet feet, big fat feet, and double thick felt beak. And on the right is a duck, also with the tail moves head mechanism, and you can see how that would work. This is a particularly good example of where you can see the necks are a little bit longer and a little bit softer, and that is to accommodate the movement. Okay, here's one of my most favorite tail moves head items in my collection. It's my teeny tiny king penguin. Let me show him to you. He's got these wonderful, big, fat feet, and his button is right here on the bottom of his feet, which I think would hurt when you walk, but he doesn't seem to complain. He's got big, fat feet. Velvet feet match his velvet wings, and lovely, double thick felt beak, and these delightful jewel colors. Now, let me show you. You are about to fall in love, I promise. Watch this. How cute is this? He's just saying, I agree with everything you say. I'm wonderful, the penguin says. And you can see this long, elongated neck. Simply beautiful. I love him. All right. Rabbits were another very popular tail moves head model. And of course, rabbits are one of the most popular Steiff designs in terms of collectibles, as Easter and all that it entails is a very popular time and event in Germany. And people do love rabbits, and Steiff interprets them so well. Here are two from my collection, which I will share with you, a sitting version and a begging version. And by begging, I mean on his hind legs and putting his arms out like he's about to beg for some delicious food off your plate as he's watching you eat. But you can see these came in a number of sizes over time and are quite lovely. So let me show these to you. Here is the sitting version. He's got his lovely little buttons, sweet expression. And you can again see this elongated neck, and that's something you can be looking out for as you are searching for vintage Steiff and collectibles to add to your collection. And he also, of course, has his wonderful tail turns head mechanism. Lovely little fellow, beautiful. And his begging brother, please give me some of your carrots. And he also moves and grooves. You see that? Just lovely. The two little bunnies of this design. It's interesting to note that Steiff did not make a tail turns head teddy bear until the early 1950s, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But they did create a tail turns head bear on all fours as part of this standard production in the 30s and 40s. So what you have here are two examples of that standing bear. The one on the left was made from 1930 through 1935. He's made out of mohair. I have this one in my collection. He's darling and wonderful. He's a little bit heavy, and we'll show you him in a bit. I found the one on the right in the Christie's catalog. This was sold at Christie's in 2010, I believe, by our friend Daniel Agnew. And what's so interesting about this one is I have never actually seen this one except for in the auction catalog. He is made out of artificial silk plush, which aligns perfectly with his era of production of the late 30s and early 40s, but I don't see him cataloged anywhere. So I thought he was so interesting and wanted to share that with you of this wonderful bear in a different material. So here is my tail moves head bear on all fours, and he's just lovely. He's very heavy. Let me show you. When you put him, he tends to topple over because his head is so heavy and so thick, and his neck, which I have been telling you about, is just very mushy and very, very not stuffed. So he's weighted funny, so you have to kind of balance him, but that's okay. We all need a little help balancing as we get older, but I wanted to share this fellow with you on all fours with this wonderful face and inset muzzle. His collar is made by Steiff, but not original to him. I thought he needed a little decoration to celebrate his wonderful neck. And let me move him for you. Here we go. Look at that. Stretching out, welcoming the day. Just a beautiful example. One of the larger ones in my collection. His felt paws. Beautiful. And of course, Steiff made a number of other models that are a little bit more rare or a little bit more unusual. Here on the left, you see a wonderful tipped chimpanzee, a little bit different than the Jocko model because his mouth is closed and his material is a wonderful tipped mohair. It's kind of long and shaggy. He's just beautiful. The item in the middle, a elephant, a tail moves head elephant in a lovely, almost pinkish gray color, very distinctive for the era, with his wonderful blanket. And on the far right is a Mickey Mouse, a tail moves head. And it is my understanding this was a prototype that was just made in 1931. The image is from Christie's, and I believe this was sold at the 2010 Christie's sale of the Steiff collection, but a wonderful and very exciting example. I'm trying to figure out how his tail would move his head, since his tail was usually a thin strip of rubber or leather, and I would think that would fall off, and that is perhaps why these were not put into full production, as they probably weren't all that terribly durable for the handling and the play these items were designed for. And here's my little chimp. It's wonderful. He has gotten a lot of love, as you can see. He's got some issues, but one thing that is not an issue, as Steiff promised, these things are built tough to last. He's still rocking and rolling with his neck. You can see, again, softer, more exaggerated neck than you'd see on a Jocko, but a very wonderful design, a beautiful face, and the eye pockets, just beautiful, lovely. And his little tail, we looked at it before. It's okay, he doesn't mind sharing his best assets with you. It's metal, and this would have been covered in a tab of mohair, but clearly has been loved off over time. This tail turns head tabby bulldog is a little bit unusual because it is one of only a handful, if the only one, of these designs that were produced exclusively as tail turned head items. I have never seen a tabby bulldog not having a tail turned head mechanism, but you never know. As Steiff, you always find interesting things in Steiff, and the next great find and the next unusual thing is right around the corner. And what I love about these items are the wonderful mouth. And so what I have here on the left, you can see one of the smaller versions in my collection. He has a glass nose, which I believe is replaced, but I do believe the smaller versions did have a glass nose, and wonderful facial expression, and a wonderful mouth, sort of smiling mouth, or perhaps waiting to eat mouth. These pert ears. I put a crown on him because I just love him. And you can see a close-up or a better view of his mouth construction here on the right, where you can see how it opens up into a big pocket, and his beautiful felt-lined ears and tabby detailing and painting. Here in the middle, you can see two of these from my collection, a smaller one and a larger one, and you can see how beautifully they scale up. And I'm proud to say that the larger one on the right in the middle picture, I purchased in London. So this is a bit of a homecoming for his appearance. So let's take a look at these in person. So here they are, these wonderful tabby bulldogs. Here's the little one. I took his crown off because I didn't want him to get a big head on the video, but here he is. You can see his fabulous construction, and his collar is also Steiff, but not original to him. Let's twist him and show him working for you. He's smiling, saying, yep, here I am. I'm a beauty. He is. And here's the mama. Wonderful. He has a delightful little felt tongue. You can see that, his construction. And this beautiful baby also rocks and rolls for you. I love these. They're just beautiful. Let's see them here. Our little friends. Oops. Okay. And also really interesting is the fact that Steiff did not make an actual tail turns head teddy bear as we know him and love him until the post-war, and it was made only in 1955. He came in 18 and 25 centimeters. These are so super rare. You hardly ever see these on the secondary market, and people who own them, you can't get them to sell them because they're so beloved and so rare. They're fully jointed and based on the original teddy bear design of that era. And one of the ways you can identify these, interestingly, is that the belly, for the most part, is a lighter shade of mohair than the rest of the body. So if you're flipping through an auction catalog, or you see one of these at a boot sale or a flea market, or wherever you do your vintage Steiff shopping, and you notice that the teddy bear's belly is a distinctly different color than the rest of the body, and it is one of these original Teds and these sizes, please check for a tail, because these bears don't usually have a tail unless they're in this model. And it is very possible that you have found a tail turns head teddy bear, a wonderful rarity, a crown jewel in any collection. And I'd like to thank John Port for sharing this picture with us of this very interesting and delightful bear. This bear is very rare and just a wonderful bucket list piece for anyone interested in this model. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about how these items were marketed. And so they basically were debuted in a catalog that came out in 1931. And this is the copy that was translated from the German describing these animals. So the year 1931 has presented us with the animals with a new head movement. The simplicity of the mechanism through which the splendid movement is produced cannot be beaten, yet it is unbreakable and allows lifelike play full of variety and mimics. When buying new supply and plush toys, please be sure to include the Steiff animals with the new head movement. All numbers equipped with it are marked H. And what that means is in the cataloging, which I will show you, there's a little H indicated with the copy describing the item, indicating that it is H for head or head moving. So this is the image that was on the front of that catalog in 1931, which launched and debuted these animals, these head turn, these tail turns head items. And hopefully by now through this lecture, you have identified most of the items that you see here. We've talked about most of them. You can see the lamb sort of towards the right and the goat. We don't have pictures of those in these presentations, but I think pretty much everything else you've had a close-up picture or a demonstration of. So they are wonderful and delightful. And what a charming picture to introduce these delightful toys. Here is a close-up of one of the pages from that 1931 catalog. And as you have probably realized, I am a big crush on the Tabby Bulldog. So I have pulled his page out for you. And then I've highlighted how it is shown and documented in the catalog. And you can see that here. Also on the page is the St. Bernard and the Dachshund I've shared with you, and a few other selections. But you can see here it's called the Sitting Bully. And when you look at the cataloging below the call out, you see the H, big H, showing that these are tail moves head items. Totally beautiful. So interesting. And I also wanted to share this page of that catalog with you. This one is demonstrating the Rattler, which we talked about a little bit, and the Scotties and the Sealyham. And just beautiful, beautiful dogs, perfectly configured for this tail moves head mechanism. On the right, you can see a teddy baby hugging the tail moves head Sealyham, I believe. And right below it, you can see Mr. and Mrs. Rattler, a delightful couple indeed. Of course, these were also advertised in publications and such. And here is a print ad featuring a beautiful little girl of the early 1930s holding everybody's favorite teddy baby with a rattler and most likely a tail moves head Scotty with her. Who wouldn't want everything in this picture? Just beautiful. And here is an advertisement, or the illustration for an advertisement of the Rattler. And Rattler did appear in lots of advertisements throughout Steiff's 1930s advertising because they were very appealing and clearly photographed so well. They were such a wonderful product. And finally, what's next? So these tail move head items were very popular and did quite well. And Steiff took that to the next level. And what they did is they created a series of fully jointed, snap jointed animals that had a tail moves head mechanism. And other items in the series included things like an elephant. And but what you see here is the snap jointed circus bear. You can see him here on the left. I've only seen one of these online at sale. This was an image from Skinner. This was sold at Skinner several years ago. It wasn't cataloged as a circus bear, but I guess a few people did recognize it as such because this went through the roof in pricing. But he was made of dark brown mohair. He's 32 centimeters tall. He's disjointed with snap leg joints, and of course his little tail, which you can see in the picture above the copy. You can twist that and turn that, and his head moves. And so these were made from 1935 through 1939, and less than 900 models were made. So they are really rare, as are all these snap jointed animals and such, but just beautiful and based on the success of the tail moves head item. Well, that's what I have for you today. I want to thank you so much for your attention and for your interest in Steiff. I hope you have a wonderful time at Huglitz. I wish I could be there more in person. I bet we all wish we could all be there in person this year, perhaps next year. Have a wonderful time shopping. Have a wonderful time learning. And thank you for supporting local and international artists and dealers. Small business, supporting them is very important, especially during these tough times. Anyway, Thank you so much. And I look forward to speaking with you or seeing you again at some point. Thank you. Teddy hugs and bye for now.